Greetings, my name is Jeremy Sutton from PrecisionPrinciple.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about some techniques for open monitoring meditation. If you recall from the last video, there are three different styles of meditation. There are single-pointed focus meditations, open monitoring awareness, and metta or loving kindness practices. In the last video, we discussed how single-pointed focused meditation is like looking at one light on a wall, such as a candle, and focusing on that point. Open monitoring meditation is like looking at a wall of endless lights in every direction and sort of opening up the gaze and trying to take in as many of the lights as possible without focusing on any one. Now, this is a visual metaphor for the feeling of open monitoring meditation, but there are many different techniques that we can use to engage in this practice. It is also important to remember that open monitoring is not really possible until we develop single-pointed focus. We need the focus and sort of the calmness of mind to be able to stay on one point. And only then should we turn towards the open monitoring meditations. If you go to an intensive retreat in almost any style of meditation, or even including in yogic practices, they will encourage get the single-pointed focus before moving towards open monitoring. So in every meditation session, on a day-to-day basis, even if you're very experienced, it's highly recommended to start with single-pointed, breath-focused, candle-focused, sensations arising, or some other single point of focus. But when we move to the open awareness techniques, here are several styles that can be practiced to help with this endeavor. One of my favorite techniques comes from Eckhart Tolle, or Eckhart Tolle. I'm not sure, everyone has their own spin on his pronunciation, but he recommends that we imagine ourselves like a cat who is waiting by a mouse hole. And we wait there, observing the hole with intense focus and curiosity as to what is about to come out of this dark space of nothing. In this metaphor, our focused attention is the cat, and our mind is the black mouse hole that we are just observing. So, in a meditation, we turn towards our mind, and we simply await with curiosity. I wonder what thought will arise next. When a thought does arise, you can notice it, and then acknowledge it, and then maybe even label it thinking, or desire, or craving, or aversion, or whatever type of thought it is, and then come back to observing the whole, and just being aware of whatever passes. Now, a metaphor for meditation that goes really well with this open monitoring is that the thought stream is often like a river. And in our day-to-day actions, we tend to get swept away by the river, and we're just kind of caught up in any thought as it arises and it sweeps us away. Well, when we're getting into open monitoring meditation, basically we want to get out of that stream of thoughts and then sit on the shore. While we're sitting on the shore, then we are just observing what happens. There's a certain level of feel where it almost feels like balancing when you get into this right spot. And thoughts can start to come by, and it's described as they come floating by, floating down the river, or you can sometimes think of clouds, just watching the clouds of thought kind of pass through the mind. Funny enough, when you start to get a quiet enough mind, you can sit on the shore, and yeah, sure enough, you might notice thoughts, it's almost like they're in the far background of your mind, like a quiet song on the radio, and they can sort of sweep in, and if you're not careful, they can take you along with it. But it's also possible, as you get a calm state of mind, as you just become aware of what's sort of passing, how you can see it coming, and because you see it coming, you don't get swept away from it. And then it kind of passes by and sort of drifts away. And then you can get back to that quiet state of open monitoring. So the problem here is getting caught up in the thoughts. And if we jump to open monitoring meditation too quickly, before we've developed the focus necessary to really get into the practice, then we think we're doing it, but we get swept away pretty much very easily. Now, last time with the single pointed focus meditation, we talked about how you can use almost all of the body sensations as a point of focus. Now, here in this open monitoring, we can turn to those sensations again, but we want to, again, sit sort of in the middle and just let our awareness eke out into all of the different areas, into our ears, into our feelings of body sensations, and just notice as sensations arise. And don't label them as good or bad or annoying. This can be very difficult when you have things like an itch on your nose and you're trying to not to think about how that is being so distracting, or that you just want to actually break your meditation and itch it, because you should probably not itch it and let the sensation arise. And you can even use that while it's arising. When you're doing open monitoring and meditation, if something comes in to distract you, you can actually, instead of being annoyed or swept away with that thought, if like a loud noise, a car alarm goes off outside, or an itch starts to come on your shoulder, you can actually use that new sound, that new sensation, as the point of focus for a moment. Don't fight the distraction. Just go straight into it. Notice the itch on your shoulder or on your neck or your nose or whatever it is. Try to explore the feeling. Hey, what does this really feel like? And then, oftentimes, if you bring your awareness into that spot, really dive your awareness into the feeling of the itch, a lot of the times, or the pain, a lot of times this is enough to make the sensation sort of dissipate away. And then, lo and behold, with the distraction gone, we can sort of sit back into open monitoring meditation. And this arises quite frequently. It's almost impossible to stop these distractions from coming in, which is why we have to develop some sort of focus first. The other thing is that when thoughts come up very strong, you might identify with these thoughts like, man, I hate it when this happens, or I like it when this happens, or I'm having a fantasy about when this happens. And you can sort of take this to the transcendental level, or one level deeper, where you start to think, when you notice the thoughts, you can try to notice, hey, where is my sense of self? Where is this I? When I say I like this, where inside of me, where is that I living? And if you sort of retreat inside and look for the I, hey, where is the I inside of me? And try to bring your awareness into that, then this is an important stage of meditation, especially if you're working on meditation for higher states of realization in the Buddhist tradition. You should notice that there is no real self. You can check out Sam Harris's Waking Up, and it's a very, very, might say, rationally minded look at meditation. And the point really is that brain scientists and Buddhists agree, and yogic practitioners, there is no sense of self. The sense of self is an illusion. No matter how much we look inside, there is no sense of self. And that goes against our common feeling of self. But the point of this type of meditation is to, when the thoughts arise and you think, I am, I feel, I have this, one of the points that we can notice is to look for that sense of self and try to kind of enter into it and say, hey, where is this I that I feel like I am? And lo and behold, you can't really find any sort of center of that self. And usually that's process going into that sensation, just like the other sensations, sort of dissipates that thought, that feeling, and lo and behold, you're back into a state of open monitoring meditation. Remember, this open monitoring is very difficult compared to single-pointed focus meditation, but it is the direction in which we want to move. So, last but not least, to transition from a single-pointed focus meditation like breath meditation to an open monitoring meditation, one thing that we can do is, when we're doing a breath meditation, we might be counting the breaths by actual giving it numbers or saying inhale, rising, falling, inhale, exhale. Any of these will work. And then noticing just the feeling of the breath instead of counting the breaths. So then we just notice the feeling of the breath as it enters and rises and falls. And ultimately, the point is to not be breathing, but to just observe yourself breathing. That is, don't make breathing a manual process that you take control of. Just sort of sit back and notice how breathing is happening. Watch yourself breathing. And then in this way, you can retreat sort of into a little bit deeper state of meditation that is the open monitoring meditation. So thank you for joining me here. If you're enjoying these videos, go ahead and click subscribe down below, click like, give it a share, and check out the game at precisionprinciple.com. This is a technique and a set of instructions that will help you take the benefits of meditation into every other aspect of your life. So thank you for joining me. In the meantime, keep learning, keep growing, and make every day count.